Have you ever lain awake in the quiet hours before dawn, staring at the ceiling, and felt a whisper, not from your thoughts, not from your memories, but from somewhere deeper? Where was I before I was born? Not as a body, not as a collection of genes or a biological accident, but as you, the quiet, knowing presence that feels older than your childhood, wiser than your traumas, and more enduring than your name. This isn't a question for theologians alone. It's not about heaven, reincarnation, or ancient myths. It's a question that has haunted poets, mystics, and seekers since the first human looked at the stars and wondered, why am I here? I am Carl Jung, not the ghostly figure you imagine, but the living voice of a psychology that dares to speak the unspeakable. For over 50 years, I walked the labyrinth of the human psyche, not as a doctor curing symptoms, but as a guide helping souls remember who they truly are. And what I discovered, after listening to thousands of dreams, analyzing the symbols of the unconscious, and sitting in silence with those who felt lost even in abundance, what I found is this. Your soul did not begin when you took your first breath. It was already here. Not as a separate entity floating in some celestial waiting room. That's a child's fantasy, a projection of our limited three-dimensional minds onto mysteries that transcend time. No, your soul existed, and still exists, in a realm beyond time. In the inconscient collectivo, the collective unconscious, the deep, shared layer of the human psyche that holds the wisdom of all humanity, across all cultures, across all ages. It is here that archetypes live, the mother, the shadow, the hero, the wise old man, the child. And above them all, the self with a capital S. Not your ego, not your job title, your social media persona, or your latest trauma. The self is the center of your entire being, the inner compass that has always known your purpose, even when you forgot it. And it was here, in this timeless realm, before you were born. Let me be clear. I am not speaking as a theologian. I am speaking as a psychologist who has seen what the mind cannot explain, but the soul remembers. The Bible says, in Ephesians 1 verse 4, He chose us in Christ before the foundation of the world. Stop. Breathe. Let those words settle. Not when your parents met. Not when your mother's egg was fertilized. Not when your first heartbeat began. Before the foundation of the world. Before galaxies spun. Before light split the dark. Before the first cell divided. You were known. Not as a name. Not as a destiny written in stone. But as a pattern. A living, breathing, eternal pattern. Think of an acorn. Does the oak tree exist inside it? Not as a miniature tree, but as a complete, intricate, invisible blueprint, a genetic code, a memory written in DNA, a potential waiting for soil, sun, rain, and time. Your soul was like that. Before your body formed, yourself, your complete, whole, divine pattern, existed as pure potential in the mind of the divine. The psalmist knew this. In Psalm 139 he wrote, You formed my inward parts. You knitted me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful. I know that full well. My frame was not hidden from you when I was made in the secret place, when I was woven together in the depths of the earth. Your eyes saw my unformed body. All the days ordained for me were written in your book before one of them came to be. This is not poetry. This is psychology. When the psalmist says, All the days ordained for me were written in your book, he is describing what I have seen in the dreams of my patients. A deep, inner knowing, not learned, not taught, not inherited from culture, but remembered. A woman in Zurich, age 52, had a dream of a stone archway she had never seen. In it stood a figure with no face, holding a mirror. She felt overwhelming peace. I asked her, What does the mirror show? She wept. It shows me not who I am now, but who I was meant to be. She had never studied theology, never read the Bible, yet her unconscious knew the same truth as the psalmist. This is the inconscient collectivo, the collective unconscious, a reservoir of archetypal images and patterns that all human beings share, regardless of culture, religion, or era. Children in Japan, in Brazil, in rural Montana, all draw mandalas, perfect circles with a central point. They do not know what a mandala is. They have never seen one. Yet they draw them anyway. Why? Because the mandala is not a symbol they learned. It is a symbol they remember. It is the image of the self, the whole, balanced, centered psyche trying to emerge. And it was there, in that sacred space, before you were born. Now, here is where the mystery deepens. In Luke 1 verses 41 to 44, Elizabeth, pregnant with John the Baptist, hears Mary's greeting, and her unborn child leaps for joy. Not a reflex, not a spasm. The text says, the baby leaped in her womb for joy. This is not science. This is soul. It means that even before birth, even before the nervous system is fully formed, the soul is perceiving. It is feeling. It is responding to love, to presence, to the sacred. I have worked with countless pregnant women. Their dreams are extraordinary. They dream of children they have never seen, children with eyes that know them. They dream of voices speaking in languages they do not speak. They dream of light, of water, of mountains, of ancient trees, symbols that carry the weight of millennia. Why? Because the fetus is not merely growing a body, it is being soul formed. The womb is not just biology. It is the first sacred vessel, the vas hermeticum, the sealed container where the alchemical transformation of spirit into flesh occurs. Your mother's breath, her heartbeat, her fears, her quiet joy, her unspoken grief, these were not background noise. They were the first language your soul learned. And when you were born, when you were violently expelled from that warm, silent, perfect world into the cold, bright, noisy chaos of this one, that was not just a physical event. It was your first initiation, your first death, and your first rebirth. The ancient Greeks called this metempsychosis, the transmigration of the soul. I call it individuation, the journey from unconscious unity to conscious individuality. And it begins with a gasp. But here is the most radical truth I have ever witnessed. You did not come here to be happy. You came here to become whole. Not perfect. Not flawless. Whole. The ego, that fragile, anxious, identity-driven part of you that worries about being liked, being successful, being enough, is not your soul. The ego is a tool, a necessary one, but it is not your center. Your center is the self, and the self has always been here. It was here before your parents met. It was here before your grandparents were born. It was here before the first human looked up at the stars and wondered. And it will be here after your body turns to dust. So where were you? Before conception? You were not a soul floating in a heavenly waiting room. That's a literal, childish image. You were a potential, a pattern, an idea in the mind of God. The ancient Gnostics called this the pleroma, the fullness, the undifferentiated source from which all things emerge. It is not a place. It is a state of pure unity, where opposites are not in conflict, but in harmony, where light and dark, male and female, life and death are one. You were there, not as a person, but as possibility, as pure, unmanifested potential. Then, at the moment of conception, when sperm met egg, when 23 chromosomes from each parent fused into a genome never before seen, and never to be seen again, something extraordinary happened. The divine breathed. The word became flesh. The archetype activated. The self, which had existed as pure potential in the pleroma, entered time. It became you. And this is where many misunderstand. They think, so my soul was created at conception. No, your soul was actualized at conception. It was embodied. It was individualized. Like a ray of white light passing through a prism. Before the prism, the light is whole, undivided. After the prism, it splits into color. Each color is real. Each color is unique. But they all came from the same source. So did you. Your soul was not created in the moment of conception. It was revealed. And in that moment, it brought with it the entire inheritance of the human soul. The fear of the dark. The longing for belonging. The instinct to heal. The hunger for meaning. All of it. That's why newborns know how to suckle without being taught. That's why infants recognize human faces within hours. That's why people across cultures dream of snakes, of falling, of flying, not because they've seen them, but because they are archetypes, ancient patterns encoded in the collective unconscious. And here is the most profound implication. Your life is not random. You were not born into this family, this time, this body, this culture by accident. You were born here, in this exact moment, because this is where your soul needed to be. If you were born into privilege, your task is not to accumulate more. It is to find meaning beyond comfort. If you were born into hardship, your task is not to escape your past. It is to transform your wounds into wisdom. Every trauma, every loss, every betrayal, even the ones you don't remember, are not punishments. They are invitations. Invitations to face your shadow, to integrate your pain, to return to yourself. I have sat with men and women who have everything the world calls success, wealth, status, admiration, and yet they feel hollow. They say, I don't know why I'm here, because they are living from the ego. And the ego is never enough. Only the self can satisfy the soul. So what now? What do you do with this truth? You don't need to join a cult. You don't need to chant. You don't need to buy a course. You only need to begin. Begin by listening, not to your thoughts, to your dreams, to your silence, to the quiet voice that speaks in metaphors. Notice the symbols that keep returning. The water, the mountain, the child, the shadowy figure, the bridge, the key, the door. Write them down. Sit with them. Don't analyze. Don't interpret. Just be with them. Ask yourself, what is this trying to show me? Journal your feelings, not your explanations. Talk to your pain, not to fix it, to understand it. You are not your anxiety. You are not your anger. You are the space in which they arise. And that space? That is yourself. That is what was here before you were born. That is what will remain when you are gone. This is not belief. This is recognition. You are not a random accident of chemistry. You are a unique expression of something ancient, sacred, and eternal. And your life, your messy, imperfect, beautiful life, is not just yours. It is part of the healing of the world. I have seen it happen. A man in his 50s, after years of therapy, begins to forgive his father. Not because his father apologized, but because he finally stopped blaming. And in that moment, he felt a shift, not just in himself, but in his family. His daughter, who had never met her grandfather, began dreaming of him and wept. A woman who survived childhood abuse, after years of sitting with her shadow, began writing poetry. Her words reached a teenager in Ohio who had tried to take her life. That teenager wrote to her, "Your words kept me alive." This is not coincidence. This is synchronicity. This is the collective unconscious waking up. When one soul integrates its pain, it makes it easier for others to do the same. It's like the 100th monkey phenomenon. When enough individuals in a population learn a new behavior, the entire species begins to learn it, even those who never saw the original. Your soul was sent here to contribute, not because you are special, but because you are you. There is a song only you can sing, a light only you can shine, a truth only you can embody. And if you feel lost right now, if you feel like your life has no direction, that is not a sign you are failing. That is a sign you are exactly where you need to be. Because the soul does not move in straight lines. It moves in spirals. It circles back. It dies. It rises. It returns. That is why so many of us feel this strange emptiness in midlife, even when we have it all. Because we've been living from the mask. And the mask is never enough. Only the self can satisfy the soul. And the journey back to yourself begins with a single question. What is my soul trying to tell me? Not tomorrow. Not next year. Now. Because your soul was known before the foundation of the world. It was chosen. It was loved. It was sent here, not to fix you, but to awaken you. And awakening is not about becoming perfect. It is about becoming present. It is about remembering. You were never lost. You were simply waiting to remember. And the path home? It begins with a breath, a pause, a question, and then the courage to listen.